Hey everybody, and welcome to a Tatter-a-fact here at the Girlz Inc. studio in Las Vegas. I am here with Olivia and Willow. You know what I noticed, you guys, is last week when I said I'm here alone. Do you know I went home and I thought about that? Yeah, because I go home and I replay shit in my head. I review the whole day many times, like in my head. That's like the manic thinker in me. And I was thinking about that, like the way I introduced like that last week's podcast was like, hey everybody, this is Tara, Girlz Inc. Like I always do, and I'm like, yeah, it's just me alone. I'm here by myself. And that's not true. That wasn't true. I was here with Olivia and Willow. So yeah, my apologies for,
I know, it kind of hurt my feelings. I was like, okay, I guess you're by yourself. We don't exist, Willow.
well, you sit over there like in the darkness, especially Willow. She's over like in the dark corner. I can't see her, and you hide, and you're like in the captain's chair, Olivia. I try not to look at you. Not for any other reason except when I look at you, like I don't like the particular side view of me that showcases when I look at you, because you sit off to my left. And that's not my best side. So my right side showcases when I look to the left, and that's not my best side. My left side's my best side. So that's why when we move, because we are moving podcast rooms, probably in another month or so. So we're going to situate it where you are off to my right. We already talked about that. So
I didn't know it was because of your side.
Yeah, it's because of my side. It's because of, you got to get the angle right. And I think it's the way my hair parts, because my hair parts on the left side. I don't know. It's just this whole thing. My left arm's all sleeved out. I don't know. It's like my left side. I like my left side. I don't know why, but I do. So, and my left nostrils pierced. My left side of my nose is pierced. It's my whole left side. So that's the side we're going to showcase from now on when we get into the new studio. But anyway, all right. So here we are. So today, it's a good day in Vegas because it's not windy, right? So anybody that knows anything about Vegas weather, we're either hot or we're windy. And we've been windy, man, like the last, I don't know. It just seems like we've been windy for like forever. And I don't like the wind. It's the worst for me. I hate the wind. I'd rather have it hot. I'd rather deal with 110 days, day after day after day, than deal with like one day of bad wind. How do you feel, Olivia? You rather have wind or rather have heat?
I'd rather have wind.
You'd rather have the wind?
Yeah,
you hate the heat?
I hate the heat.
You hate the heat? Well, I don't like the heat, but I dislike the wind like a whole lot more. It gives me headaches, man, all sinusy, and just, I don't know, it just messes with my whole everything. But today's a good day. It is hot, though. I'm going to hit 96 today. We're like 10 degrees above where we should be here in Vegas. But, hey, wherever you go, I grew up in Maine. There you deal with like 6 months of winter, cold, snow, freezing, ice. So, All right. So today's podcast. So last week we talked about pigments, right? We talked about testing pigments. We talked all about like EU and a little bit about like the 6-part test and what reaches and ECA and some of the new banned, colorants and ingredients that got added to the list and whatnot. We talked about carbon, and because there's been some questions and concern and lots of chatter online about carbon, the carbon load in the organic brow color. So last week I thought was a great podcast, super educational, strictly PMU, lot of information. So this week I wanted to stay with pigments, and I wanted to talk about organics again. and why, because I think there's some confusion on organics and the word organic. So I wanted to clarify that up and talk about that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about modifiers, because I know there's some confusion with modifiers. So this is all like color theory stuff. So everything that like I'm talking about today, this is stuff that I've been talking about for, in teaching, for the last, 10, 12 years. These are all little snippets out of my color theory course, my online color theory course. And and so how I get my topics for these podcasts is we go online, we go into the Facebook groups, and we just see what people are talking about and some of the questions that are coming up, that particular week. And so so I saw something on organics. There was some confusion on organics, and there was a lot of stuff on modifiers the past couple weeks. So let's get in and start talking about some of that stuff. So I think the confusion, and you even said this, Olivia, because when we first hired you here at Girlz Inc., I think we tortured you. Like I made you sit down. Like you came from a clothing boutique, right?
Yeah, from retail.
For retail, right? You were like fresh out of college, or is that how you put yourself through college?
That's how I put myself through college.
Okay, and not to brag or anything, but you were like, am I saying it correct if I say Phi Beta Kappa?
Yeah, Phi Theta Kappa.
Which means you're really fucking smart.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And Willow is really fucking smart too. So I don't know how I ended up with like two really smart like geeks who are also like super fucking cool, because you're kind of nerdy geeks, right? Computer geeks, techie geeks, right?
Yeah.
Right? That's not offensive.
No.
Okay. Because you are. But like you're super cool too.
Oh, thank you. I didn't think I was cool.
Well, there's levels of cool, Olivia. So I mean, there's levels of cool. So all right. So come down a little bit there, but but you're cool in my book. You're cool. All right. So I made you sit down and I made you watch. I don't know. What was it? 10 hours of color theory?
Yeah, 10 hours.
That's so mean. I think back. Did we make you do that, Willow?
I got through an hour and a half, and then you guys just gave me different projects.
Okay. I know. That was so mean. But anyway, and that was one of the things that confused you too, Olivia. But it confuses, I think, a lot of people in PMU is the word organic, right? So we have two different types of pigment in both body tattooing and PMU, and either iron oxides or inorganics and organics. And when it comes to our pigments, the term organic has absolutely nothing to do with being healthy in nature or coming from like a natural source or a natural origin, like food, right? So when we talk like organic food, then of course it's grown in soil with no pesticides. There's no, anything like that. It's grown with, everything's natural and organic. No chemicals, no pesticides, no growth hormone, nothing like that. And so when we talk about organics in PMU and we use the word organic, then a lot of people get confused and they think the actual pigment, that particular organic pigment, is made from like fruits and vegetables, like that's where they're being made from. That's where they're being sourced from. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And so what does organic really mean when it comes to pigments? So natural or raw pigments, right? Because there are some products being made from natural or raw pigments, like topical cosmetics, some like textile, fabrics, and some drugs, some medicines, and even some foods, believe it or not, some foods. I'll tell you what foods, like in a minute. So there are products being made from natural or raw pigments, and those natural or raw pigments do come from flowers, plants. They come from animal sources like sepia. Do you know what sepia is? No. So
No.
sepia, it's like a reddish brown. It's like a fish, like a cuttlefish, and it's a like reddish brown color, and it comes from the ink sac, and so that would be a natural or raw source for pigment. The cuttlefish coming from plants, flowers, things like that. There's actually a bug, and I believe it is from Mexico, and it's called the okay, I want to say this right, but cochineal.
I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry.
Cochineal, cochineal, something like that. And it's a bug, and they crush that up, and they get this dye called carmine, and that particular dye is used for textiles, drugs, cosmetics, and even some foods and drinks. So those are all examples of natural, raw, organic sources used as colorants, right? But in no way, shape, or form is any pigment like we're using in either PMU or body tattooing made from any of those sources. There's no pigment that is contains any dyes or colorants from fruits, vegetables, plants, fish, animal source, anything like insects, bugs, nothing. It just doesn't exist. It wouldn't pass testing. Over in the EU, first and foremost. And the reason that pigments are not made from a natural source is because they're just they're loaded with contaminants. The risk for allergic reaction and complications are just way too high. So pigments in PMU and body tattooing, whether it's an iron oxide inorganic or an organic, they are synthetically reproduced in the lab. They just are. Synthetic reproduction under sterile conditions in the lab, that risk of allergic reaction is reduced significantly, and the manufacturers can like efficiently remove and clean out like all the contaminants. And you just can't do that when you're talking colorants and dyes from nature, from natural sources. So that's that in a nutshell. Organics and iron oxides both they're synthetic. They're synthetically reproduced in a lab. So why do they call them organics then, right? So that's the big question. Okay, well, if they're not, if they don't come from nature or like a natural source, then why do they call them organic? And it's because organic pigments contain carbon. And carbon exists in all living matter, and in chemistry, carbon is considered an organic matter. So because organic pigments contain carbon, and carbon is an organic matter, chemists call that range of pigments organic pigments, because organic pigments contain carbon. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
That makes sense now?
Mm-hmm.
I remember going to it was like an aesthetic beauty show, like a big, huge show with all kinds of PMU people. It's like massive. It's here in Vegas. And this is not that long ago, less than 10 years ago. This is maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And I was at this show with some PMU colleagues, some friends. and there was a booth there, and they were claiming that, they were claiming that they were selling pigments. Their pigments were organic, which is fine because there are organic pigments, but when you continued on to read, it was explaining why their pigments were a healthier choice because they were made from plants and vegetables. No, I'm not kidding. And of course, I wanted to go say something, but I didn't. But I was with a colleague that did. I mean, couldn't help themselves, and went up to the booth and educated them that it wasn't correct. There are no pigments made from plants and vegetables. And the gal on the other side of the booth, she didn't like that. She didn't like that at all. She wasn't very friendly. And she argued about it. And then my friend, who knows her stuff in pigments and color theory, she didn't get argumentative, but I mean, she kept up, and she did keep debating, and was trying to educate her that, this information is not correct. You're giving out incorrect information about your pigments. And then, the lady got really upset. She goes, well, I should know my own pigments and how they're made and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, let's, just, okay, walk on. Sometimes, you just got to walk on because they're just not going to listen. But, my advice would be, if you ever, there would be 3 reasons someone would, think that would be saying that their organic pigments are made out of plants and vegetables. And that would be, number 1, they really do believe that. I mean, they think that. They really believe it because it says organic. They just happen to believe that their pigments, and who's ever making them, is making them from plants and vegetables. So if that's the case, run, right? Run, if someone really thinks that. Or 2, they know damn well that organic pigments are not made from anything in nature. They know damn well they're not, but they use that in marketing, right? They know they're going to get some people that don't know any better, and that's going to attract maybe a certain customer that eats organic or finds that appealing and is going to buy into that. So, if that's the case, run, right?
Yeah.
Run. Or if they're making their own pigments, because, that has happened in our industry where there's been people that have made pigments in their house. If their pigments really are made from, vegetables and plants and, fish, run.
I didn't know people did that.
Yeah, I don't know if a lot of that or any of that is going on nowadays. I mean, we're really evolved now as an industry. But, I mean, Olivia, you're talking in the 80s and 90s. Yes, that was going on. That was going on. And there were some people making pigments in their home and bottling them themselves. So, in that case, I mean, who the hell knows? I mean, what was going into the pigments. But, for anybody listening to this today and you've been, wondering if, or confused by the name organic, it's just important to know that there are none. If there are any pigments made out of fruits and vegetables or anything that comes from nature, an animal source, anything like that, if there happens to be a pigment that exists in today's industry, don't use it. I mean, that is just asking for trouble. There's a reason, that they're not manufactured that way today. And they haven't been, for, a very, 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 very long time. They've been synthetically reproduced. I mean, I wouldn't even dare to say how long, but I mean, a long, long, long time. I would say 50 years, maybe. Yeah. I know LI has been making pigments. They're coming up on the 30th anniversary. And, long before Darlene's story came in, pigments were synthetically, reproduced. So you're talking a long, long time pigments have been synthetically reproduced. So again, when we're talking, organic pigments, it's not organic like we think of like our food or, other products we use around, our home, in our personal life. It's just not. All pigments, whether organic or iron oxide, they are synthetically reproduced in the lab. And that is a really, really, really good thing because manufacturers, like I said, they're cleaned. They're cleaned. They're purified from any contaminants, and again, it brings that risk of or exposure to allergic reaction. It brings it down. I mean, so significantly low. I believe it's about 1 to 2% of the world's population will have an allergic reaction. It's really low when you're talking a good pigment manufacturer. There certainly are some cases of it, but it's significantly low and pretty darn rare to have an allergic reaction to a manufactured pigment. So I hope that clears up a lot of things, when we're talking organics. And of course, carbon. Carbon is, we talked all about carbon last week. That's an organic. So if you missed last week's podcast, you should check it out because that's pretty interesting too on color theory. So yeah, there you have it. Organics. I try to eat organic. I know you don't, Willow. We talked about this last week.
I tried.
You try. I think once you start eating organic, it's really hard to go. Obviously, I can't eat 100% organic. That's impossible. But in my house, all my groceries, we eat all organic yogurt. This is a good example. We eat all organic yogurt, and I have been for years and years and years and years. And a few years back, my grandmother passed away, and I went to North Carolina with my mom, jumped on a plane really, really super quick, and stayed in a hotel. And I didn't have access to, my type of food, my type of breakfast, I keep in my home. And went downstairs, and they had Yoplait yogurt. And Yoplait yogurt, that's pretty common yogurt, right? And I used to eat it back in the day before I went to all organic eating, or as much organic as I can. And I liked Yoplait and Dannon, those are the yogurts. But I had been years where I've been eating organic yogurt. And so grabbed me a Yoplait and started eating it, and immediately I could taste chemical. It was really crazy. I couldn't eat it. So that happens to you. Same thing when you stop drinking soda. I used to, yeah. Did you used to drink soda?
Oh no, I still drink soda.
You still drink soda? No,
I
I
doesn't, and she was telling me that she kind of adapted to it.
Yeah, I stopped drinking soda. I was like a Diet Coke girl, and I haven't drank soda in 20 years, but I did, and it was really super hard to quit. And in a few years ago, it was really super hot here, and I was craving something carbonated. I hadn't had a Diet Coke in 12, 13 years. I pulled into an A&PM and got one right out of the ice and clicked it open and took a big chug, and chemical. It just wasn't how I remembered it. So it does taste different. There's eggs. My friend Dong has chickens. So when you eat a chicken from a real egg, it's warm, it just plopped out of the chicken, and you go bring it in the house and you make an egg. Even that tastes different than an organic egg you would get at Whole Foods. It's crazy. Yeah. because that's like really organic. I mean, yeah. So anyway.